Hey guys, welcome back to class. So today we're going to start our unit on the American Civil War, and to start it off we're going to watch this little kid show just a little bit about the basics of what the Civil War composed of.
You know, Civil War, let's do this. There's been lots of Civil Wars throughout history. That's when one part of the country fights another part of the country instead of a whole other country. England's done this a few times. China had a big one. And there's one going on in Syria right now, which is actually a really sad situation. But we're going to talk about the one that happened in America. Now, the United States was founded 240 years ago with the signing of the Declaration of Independence. But you could argue that the moment that we really became a nation is 151 years ago. That's when we decided not to break up into two different countries. But why did people even want to do that in the first place? In a word, slavery. Let's look at some background. For hundreds of years, Africans were kidnapped and shipped to America to work in the field. States in the South had agricultural economies, which is another way of saying they made money from farms. A lot of them thought it was their God-given right to keep slaves. States in the North had industrial economies, which means that they make stuff in factories with machines. During the 1840s and the 1850s, people kept moving west and created new territories to live in. A lot of these territories wanted to become new states. A compromise was reached between the North and the South, saying that any new state could join the Union if they didn't have slavery. Which brings us to the presidential election of 1860. A new political party called the Republicans ran on an anti-slavery platform. Their nominee was Abraham Lincoln. The South didn't like it when he won. A bunch of states left the Union, elected their own president called Jefferson Davis, called themselves the Confederate States of America, and even printed their own money. And the war started when the Confederates attacked Fort Sumter, and everyone had to pick a side. Battles raged for years. In 1863, Lincoln freed the slaves with the Emancipation Proclamation, and lots of African Americans were allowed to join the army in the North. Most people agreed that the tide turned with the Battle of Gettysburg, and within 2 more years, the North had won. Confederate General Robert E. Lee surrendered to Union General Ulysses S. Grant on April 9, 1865. Slavery was no more, and the United States was preserved. All in all, 2% of all of America died in the Civil War, which would be the equivalent of 6 million people today. Unfortunately, one of the last people to die was Abraham Lincoln himself. He was shot by a Confederate sympathizer just 5 days after the South surrendered. Even though the Civil War resolved a lot of things, that sure didn't stop Americans disagreeing with each other. But there's a lot of really good things about America, which makes me glad that the Civil War ended the way it did. Thanks for watching, everyone. I love reading your comments, so...
Okay, so hopefully that was a good way to tie into our lesson today. So I'm going to give you guys a short kind of overview, just like he did, about what we're going to be covering today. But first we're going to go over the objective. Can somebody read this out for me?
Students will be able to explain the economic causes of the Civil War using part of a Civil War flip book.
Great, thank you so much. So in that video, we had an overview of the whole Civil War and all of the different causes that really brought the Civil War to life, what was going on through it, and how it ended. But today we're going to focus primarily on the economic causes of the Civil War. But as I mentioned before we're going to do that, we're going to do a little bit of a think, pair, share, and you guys are going to talk about what you do know about the Civil War so far. That can be prior knowledge or anything that you just learned from that little video, and then who fought in it. So go ahead and take 30 seconds, talk to each other about that, and then we're going to come back and talk about it.
So all I know is there's one himself, a Confederate
Okay, great. So can somebody go ahead and answer me the first question here, what do you know about the Civil War? Go ahead.
So we talked about, it was the North and the South, so we're fighting our South, and the Confederate flag.
Perfect. That's really great background information that you do definitely need as we go into more detail about all of this. And then, as you mentioned, who fought in it?
The South.
Yep, the North and the South. So, do you guys know that the South is considered the Confederacy, and while the North was considered the Union? And so that's what this is. So, this a Civil War is not necessarily only the American Civil War, even though that's what we primarily know it as to be today. So, a Civil War is a war that is fought between groups within the same country. Before I forget, anything that's bolded on this PowerPoint is what you guys are going to be including in your notes today. So you'll have the fill in the blank and you can go ahead and fill in with the bolded notes. And so the American Civil War was fought, as you guys mentioned, between the North and the South. And the North was considered to be the Union and the South was the Confederacy. So now we're going to go into the economic causes of the Civil War. And later on in our next couple of class periods, we're going to go into the political and social causes as well. But today we'll focus on the economics. So the economic causes of the Civil War, to be very brief, were a disagreement on tariffs between the North and the South, the difference in size and population between the North and the South, the slave labor and whether that was correct morally or not between the North and the South, and finally the commercial versus agricultural economy that each of the different technically countries were based upon for their economies. And so we're going to go over what a tariff is exactly. So a tariff is a tax that has to be paid on imported goods. And so the purpose of a tariff would be to make foreign products more expensive, and that would make the hope that people would actually end up buying goods that were made from the home country rather than bringing things in, because they would be more expensive. And this will protect jobs in America because people have to be making these products rather than getting them shipped in from, say, China or Britain. Okay, and so now going into the size and population difference, the North was economically dominant over the South, and this is purely based on size. So if you look here at the population, the North had a far greater population size compared to the South, and this was also seen in the factories, and that played a role in their economies as well as the railroad mileage. And also the North was made up of more than twice as many states as the South. Slave labor was a huge moral issue that the country was facing when the Civil War broke out. And so the South greatly required the slave labor, and they focused their efforts on cotton, tobacco, and sugarcane. And the slave labor was used to harvest these important crops. And the slave labor became a vital part of the American economy, which later led to slave trade, slave auction. And the slave auction was a horrible time where humans were bid on and sold to the highest bidder. So you can think about like a 4-H kind of situation, if any of you guys know what 4-H is. It's when a family grows up a cow or a pig or a sheep, and then they bring it to the county fair, and then it's sold to the highest bidder for it to be butchered and for meat later. So this was kind of like what the slave auction was like, that these humans were sold to the highest bidders. And slave labor became such an important part of the economy that the people of the South forgot that all men were created equal under the Constitution, even though that was written in the Constitution all the way back in 1776. And the threat of losing this idea of free labor caused so much unrest in the South, and it helped to bring about the Civil War. And finally, we're going to talk about the commercial and agricultural economy. And so the North, as mentioned before, was a commercial economy, and they focused on railroads, banks, factories, and textiles. And their agriculture that they did have in the North, they began to focus more on mechanical labor. So they moved away from the slave labor, and they moved into using machines to create their textiles and create all of these different things that the South was still using slaves for. So the South was used as an agricultural economy, and we know that cotton was an extremely valuable export for these people in the South, and the Southern agriculture maintained a very labor-intensive society. And does anyone have any questions? Can I get a thumbs up, to the side, thumbs down on that before we start our activity? Awesome. So we're gonna do, over the next few days, we're gonna make a flip book. Have you guys ever made a flip book before? Okay, so we're gonna take about 5 sheets of paper, and you're gonna use this for your economic, social, and political causes of the Civil War so that you have it all wrapped up into one. So what we're gonna do is take these 5 sheets of paper, and we're gonna fold them over, and they're gonna end up looking like this, and then you're gonna have the American Civil War, and we're gonna have all of this information down here, and that's gonna be a really good study guide for you guys for your test at the end of the unit. So does anyone have any questions?